Welcome
to the Bring Me to Life podcast.
It's time to wake up
and shine on.
Hello everybody, welcome to the Bring Me Life podcast. Thank you for waking up and shining on with us. My name is Selomon, joined by the fantastic Shannon Shine.
What up, beautiful humans? Like Sela said, thanks for waking up and shining on. This has been an exciting month. I like this elemental series that we've been working on. If you missed the last couple episodes, we have covered, I believe, fire and water so far. And today we are diving into the air element.
Yes. Episode 211 was water and episode 212 was fire. So if you're interested in those, go back and check those ones out. Water or air is a fantastic element to talk about. I'm a big fan of Avatar: The Last Airbender, and air is a very interesting element. People with air signs are always kind of interesting people, and
that air energy, it kind of connects with like being in the flow, and usually air element personalities, I guess is the word I'm looking for. They're very into logic and ideas and intellect and communication and being very active. So that's kind of like the energy we celebrate when we think of the air element.
Nice. Cool. Well, I'm excited to kind of like dive in and learn more about that. And before we do that, I do want to satiate anybody who is interested in the scientific aspect of it, because we've done that for the other elements. So air is very interesting. I got all this stuff from nasa.gov, by the way, in case anybody's interested. That's where I got these sources from. So air is 78% nitrogen and 21% oxygen. Oxygen is stuff that we breathe in and the plants give off, and also it has other gases like carbon dioxide and hydrogen. Carbon dioxide is what we breathe out, and it's also what cars give off when they burn gas, and when coal gets burned, it also releases carbon dioxide too. But there's a good amount of carbon dioxide, but also it's pollution. So take care of the earth. Like, let's take care of our air better. One thing that happened when the pandemic hit was I saw that the pollution in a lot of places dramatically decreased. Like, it was ridiculous. So for that to happen, I just want to celebrate air and thank air and give gratitude to the element of air, because it is so essential, just like water and just like fire. And we need air to live on this earth. We breathe in air every single day, every moment of our life. Now think about that. Like, how important is air? Well, every single moment of our entire lives, we breathe in air.
Yeah, I mean, we have to have these different elements to experience life as we know it. And it's powerful to honor the different elements in many different ways. Is there anything else that you wanted to share on the scientific front of air?
I just have some interesting things about air. According to NASA, the fastest gust of wind that was ever recorded on Earth was 253 miles per hour.
Dang.
Yeah, so it can get pretty windy out there. Wind is so powerful. Like, you think about it, and it's like, it's interesting because, there's air pressure. And you think about air, like, you hold out your hands, it doesn't feel like air weighs much. But the deeper you get, like when you go deep into the ocean, and the reason that you feel all that pressure on you is because all the air is stacked on top of each other and it's weighing down on you. So when you get up to like a high mountain or something, there's less pressure on you, and that's why your ears pop, because of that force, that weight of air. So air really does have a weight to it.
That's pretty crazy. And The other thing I think is important to honor air is there's the different pathways. I wish I knew the scientific term for it, but I'm visualizing it similar to water. You know how there's different currents and streams that animals will hop into? I'm specifically in my brain thinking of Finding Nemo and how the turtles hop into the specific reef current and ride to a different way. But they do that in the air too. So birds do that during migration season. They tap into certain, you know, routines that the winds and the clouds have for us here in the Earth's atmosphere, and they just ride with that flow and that fierceness. So there's a magic to it as well, as like it's a very scientific thing to breathe and experience air and to understand that air exists though we can't see it. But the majestic element to air and how the animals around us use it in such a logic way, I think is pretty powerful too. So on windy and cloudy days, for, you know, as long as humans have existed, there have been people who honor the element of air, and they do so by, you know, placing out things like wind chimes and wind. I'm trying to think of what the little, I call them windmills, but the things that, you know, kids blow into and they spin pinwheels, things like that. Like we have these little gadgets where we love to watch how air moves and is experienced, even though we can't really see it. We can't see air itself, but we see the reflection of it in different objects as little beings.
Tornado,
leaf
like
tornadoes, sand tornadoes, actual tornadoes. I'm always so mesmerized when I just sit outside and there's a breeze blowing and you can watch every single leaf on a tree just move and have its own dance because of air and because of wind and the ability of it to just flow in between every object. Like everything is touching air. Yeah. But yet we can't actually like feel it. It's so crazy.
It's nice when like today it was hot outside, but then all this wind was just cooling me down and it just felt so good.
Yeah, it's able to both like warm you up sometimes when it's humid. It's like a combination of like the air and the water, and then it can like cool you down as well, like you said, like a breeze. But in general, so can I talk about some of the more spiritual air things?
Let's get into the spiritual aspect, the metaphysical aspect of the air element, because
I like to talk about how other people honor air. So the tarot, they honor the air element by the swords, which I've always thought was interesting. I always would have thought the air would have been represented by wands, because, you know, you're like waving a wand in the air, but they use it as a sword because you are flailing a sword in the air, and it can cut through things, which is pretty fierce when you think about it. And they connect that energy with, again, logic and ideas, intellect, communication, going with the flow, new beginnings and stuff like that. And it's also represented by the season of spring, because spring is a time of rapid growth and movement. And again, the birds are migrating and plants are waking up and reaching for the sky. Butterflies. I've been seeing so many yellow butterflies lately. The direction. So each element has a direction. I don't know if I actually covered that in another episode, but the direction of air is the east. So when certain practices will use elements in a direction when they cast a circle or create an altar or whatnot, and the direction is east. There are different colors people will represent with air, even though we can't see it. So it's like a white or like an iridescent color, or light blue or yellow, and they represent the sky and the sunlight. So when people make altars, they'll typically use candles of those colors and crystals. So some different crystals you can connect with the air energy are clear quartz, because it has the ability to enhance insight and can be used in place of many other crystals. Labradorite is a good air crystal. It's good for intuition and insight. Amethyst is good for transformation and calming the mind. Blue lace agate is good for using the voice and activating the air element in your voice and in communication. Same with kyanite and turquoise. Hematite is good for helping with confidence and using the air element for confidence. And yeah, so a few other things that certain cultures will use are different herbs. They will use them in teas or in cooking. So some of the air connection, or the air herbs are lavender and peppermint and mugwort and yarrow. And then there's different rituals. So people like to celebrate things like fire with candles, and things like earth with, like, collecting and foraging different items and celebrating them. But with air, we celebrate it in a different way. One of the rituals that I've been aware of is using like a feather for a ritual, and using it to waft air towards you while saying things out loud that you want to welcome into your life, or to release energy. So sometimes people will use a feather with a smudge of sorts. Certain practices use sage or incense or Palo Santo, or something that feels good for your personal practice. There's so many people who have different perceptions of what is, proper to use, but find something that feels sacred to you and that you can honor, and maybe call upon a feather of sorts. I live somewhere that I am lucky enough that if spirit feels so, it will present me with feathers. I have a feather collection, actually. And some spiritual healers, they have different forms of blessed feathers, or I'm sorry, I'm saying a million times, but I'm like, what are those words? They use these like wafting fans with their smudge stick. And what that does is you're not just using your body, you're embracing the element of air and flight and lightness, and the feathers can sort of cleanse the air around you because of the way that they are like physical, like a feather duster. You're like feather dusting your energy.
It's called like an altar fan or something. Like an altar fan.
I know they have a word, and I'm just like slacking today.
So like, this is the word. Oh my gosh, I wish I was on this podcast so I could say the word right now.
But yeah, so find some way to celebrate the air element that feels good to you, whether it's through smudging or feathers or all kinds of things that can connect you to the air element.
Turkey feathers are big and wide. Like, those are good ones.
Yeah. Someone recently presented me with a, I think it's a hummingbird feather, or like it's some sort of beautiful yellow feather. And every now and then I'll find a blue jay feather, and it's really beautiful. I've seen a couple of cardinal feathers. We have a lot of crows and ravens, so I see a lot of those feathers in our field, and it's just always beautiful to get that kind of connection, and you can also connect with the angels through the air element. I'm surprised I didn't channel that one sooner, but that came through, that angels really enjoy connecting through the air element of air. They will also connect through other elements, but the air element is one that is, more divine to them, because we often see them with wings, and the connection to them flying, and also the fact that we can't see them. So we feel them and understand their presence, much like we understand air exists, but we can't experience it in a physical sense.
Yeah. It is interesting to think about that. Like, and wind is always moving, even when we don't feel it. It's just out there moving around, and very crazy to, we were talking about birds and feathers, and I started thinking about how many feathers there are just out there all around, and just thinking about how many birds are out there, and how many times just one of their feathers just like wiggles off and falls to the ground so majestically, and then somebody a little bit later maybe walks up to it and looks at it and says, "Spirit, am I allowed to honor this feather and bring it with me?" And if the earth says yes, and then you can bring it back. Like, it's such a magical journey, that feather, going from cells, like atoms, how they just split and multiply, and then turns into a feather, and that feather grows and grows and grows, and then that feather just wiggles off and floats down from the sky. It's so majestic to think about that, I love movies. I love storytelling. So intros to movies are fascinating to me. And that's like a good intro to a movie, is just see a random feather flying off a bird and lands on the ground. And then the main character walks by and picks it up.
That actually reminds me of an experience I had the other day when I was taking my drum into the woods. I walked down just a random path in the woods, and along it were 3 feathers. I saw one and was like, oh, there's like an angel energy here. And it was like kind of like a darker, like black color, almost like a crow feather. And then I kept walking, and then there was a gray feather. It was like almost like a silver colored feather. And it was like slightly smaller than the big black one at the beginning of the path. And then I got to the opening in the clearing where the water was, and there was a little tiny white feather, and it was just like fluffy and different. And it felt like I was walking through this like majestic portal, like of darkness into the light, because it was a big black feather to a small white fluffy angelic feather. And then there was just like the lake there, and I got to just sit and play my drum for a moment. And it was kind of like a movie-esque experience, because I had went to the spot to just kind of have a moment and to connect with the elements. And I imagined that I would connect with water, and I was obviously going to sit on the earth, and I was going to a space in nature. And I had like a little candle with me, but I didn't think about bringing a smudge or anything with me to celebrate air. But then there were the feathers to, you know, show up, and showed me that spirit was like, all right, you were having this elemental experience. So it did kind of feel like I was in a movie. I tried to record little bits with my phone. Maybe I'll get it edited one day.
That's pretty cool. Yeah, I like the idea of it being like a transition when you're going through a portal, almost like an ombre. Like sometimes when you have an ombre, it's one color on one side, one color on the other side, but there is a transition period where they kind of melt a little bit together.
Yeah, totally. And that the gray feather, the silver feather, I kind of like felt that. Like I wasn't expecting to see the little white feather like right at the clearing, and it did just kind of feel like, you know, you have those moments in life where you just feel like you're in like a video game or a movie, and you're just like, oh, I collected the black feather. Now I've got the silver feather. Here's the little white feather. Now I'm in the portal. Like it was just a cute little experience, but it was like a transition, and I felt much lighter after that. Like I did feel like I connected with the air element in a different way. So it's just powerful when you open yourself up to those experiences, because it's like I probably would have never noticed something like that, you know, when I was like younger, or when I'm in my like deepest angst. Like yeah, I was kind of like looking for a sign from spirit, but then there it was too, you know, like right there in front of me. So when you open yourself up to these deeper connections to the elements and the world around you, spirit will speak and show up for you in unique ways.
Yeah, it's absolutely true. So do you have any maybe like journal prompts people can write about with the air element, or maybe anything you would like to talk about with the oracle, or anything like that? I want to provide the space here, because we're talking a little bit more about the symbolism now with air, and those are both, you know, really wonderful things. I'm sure there's a bunch of meditations out there to work with the air element.
Anything breath work would be a great meditation.
Yeah, definitely.
I don't really have much else oracle wise. Like I said, that's usually represented by the swords. I know some people, they draw certain cards from certain decks, and they've connected them to certain elements. As far as journal prompts, just kind of asking yourself, are you moving in the right direction? Are you moving with the wind or against the wind? And is there anything maybe that you should be like setting sail towards in a certain direction? Because that's kind of what I was getting at too with the airflow and the water flow. Like, yeah, we have currents, but the air and the wind, it all works together, and you got to figure out, you know, if you're working against the wind, it's going to take you a whole lot longer to get to the place you want to go. So feeling into that air element and asking yourself what direction would make you feel most in flow. And I know that's a question that's coming up for a lot of people right now as they ask themselves, like, am I in the right job? Am I applying for the right things? Am I living in the right space? Am I with the right person? And ask yourself what the path of the least resistance is, and what puts you in most flow, and how you can, you know, set sail in the proper direction. And yeah, I think that that's a big thing that a lot of people are really like questioning right now. And I invite them to hold space for that as they connect with the elements. And yeah, breath work. The Ego Eradicator, I think, is a great meditation for people to connect with the air element. It's a meditation that I use a lot in my insight timers on Tuesday. Tuesdays at 12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I'm going to put that shameless plug right there. At the end, I usually do some form of an Ego Eradicator, and it's where you just stick your hands straight up in the air, and you take some nice deep breaths or quick breaths, depending on what kind of effect you want. If you take nice, long, deeper breaths, you pull down energy in a deeper way. And if you do quicker breaths, you release energy and pull in new oxygen for a fresh energy body. So putting your hands straight up in the air and kind of the bring me to life pose, and really like allowing yourself to push through that breath for, at least a solid minute or two. And then bringing those hands down to your heart space and pulling that air and that love and that energy in so that you can feel more connected to the space around you. I think that is a powerful air meditation.
Yeah. When you're using breath work, you're moving that energy quite a lot. So it does, kind of pull things out and it's a pretty powerful effect. The Ego Eradicator is a great one. Also, Wim Hof is a powerful breath magician. He has some really powerful ones, and he teaches people how to do them in kind of extreme climates as well, and how to control your mind and how your mind can control basically your body and all these crazy things about your body, temperature and all these things. So very powerful. And also I think it's very interesting with sailboats, because you were talking about like you using the tide of the water and working with the wind, and think about sailboats, like they got to do both at the same time. Like they follow along the water currents and also with the wind currents.
Yeah, that is some elemental magic to be a sailor.
Yeah,
pretty powerful to think about. And they also use the stars to navigate and to get from one landmass to another. And I'm often like, how did they like survive or heat things on a boat? Because you can't really just light a fire in water. Back in the day, it was probably not the safest. So it's just like thinking about how they navigated the elements in such a journey, and as they set sail, is really, really a magical thing.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, I don't think they had any fireplaces on sailboats.
That's what I'm saying.
They had a shit ton of blankets.
But think of, how did they cook? How did they survive for months?
I'm sure they had a thing set up so they could have a little fire, but just not like, a big one.
That's what I'm saying.
And it was probably above the floor. Like they probably had some mechanism that they built so it contained that fire a little bit better.
I feel like I need to go down a tunnel of searching pirate ships and boats and how they survive now. Now that's in my brain. Who else goes through those times where they get these wild ideas and then they fall through the tunnel of the internet? If you do that and you have something cool you want to share, you can share it with us in the Bring Me to Life network community. I think it's just Bring Me to Life community, actually, on Facebook. Yeah. You can find us as Bring Me to Life Network on Instagram and your other favorite social medias. Check out bringmetolife.com with the number 2.
Yeah, that's where we have a bunch of cool other podcasts and articles and music and lots of cool stuff.
We're working on our Patreon. If you enjoyed this podcast and you feel so called to make a donation and to see this network thrive and survive, you can check us out there. It's patreon.com/BM2L.
BM2L Network.
There you go. You can also find it at bringmetolife.com with the number 2. And yeah, join us in the Bring Me to Life community on Facebook. Share an article. Find something inspirational that helps you wake up and shine on. We would love to see you hop in there.
Yeah, so next episode we're going to finish up with our elemental series and talk about Earth. Something maybe we'll talk about too is ether a little bit on that one. But yeah, it's going to be a good episode. September, we're going to talk a lot about angels. We're going to do a workshop for our Patreon on angels.
I'm super excited about that. I have some angel paintings I've been working on, all kinds of good angel energy. I've been calling upon the angels a lot lately through this chaos, so stay tuned for that. And yeah, I'm excited.
Also, our workshop for this month is on elemental magic. So if you listen to this and it's in the future, like, you will have instant access to this workshop, elemental magic,
as well as many other workshops and other behind the scenes content that we've shared on our Patreon. If you don't know what Patreon is, send us a message. We'll gladly share it with you. But basically, you can make a micro donation and it helps the network continue to survive, continue to survive, and helps me, stay awake and be able to speak. So thanks for tuning in, and yeah.
All right, everybody, stay awake.
Shine on always.
For many of us, spirituality is just the quest to find essence or true meaning and to really just connect with a higher consciousness.
Connecting with your spirituality is very important in this life. By becoming mindful of all of it, you can realize where you are and if that is leading you to where you want to go.
Listen to the little simple things, because it's those little simple things that are going to shift you vibrationally in such a way that will prepare you to become very intuitively minded and ready to step forward on the next part of your path.
I hope you can feel the love that's inside you, it's inside me, that connects us.
Thanks for shining on with us.